Listen, you're not gonna find anything on me, okay? Trust me.
Empty your pockets into the tray, sir, or we'll have to. Your pockets, sir?
Lady, the problem isn't in my pants.
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes, and it's that time of the week for me to bring one of the saltiest guys I know. He's no Pele. He's not the curmudgeon or critical, but Doc is one salty bastard, especially when it comes to X-Men. The man knows his X-Men history. He knows what he likes in X-Men, and he's not afraid to share it, people. So today we're going to talk about Juggernaut #1. We're going to go a little bit into the Rob Liefeld controversy stuff that's been going on with him and X-Men readers. And finally, we'll get Doc's thoughts on Ten of Swords. And if he's in Camp Wes, where I said the first half sucked and I thought the second half was great, I think we're going to disagree on this one. But Doc, you are the X-Men historian. You are the Marvel aficionado. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me on here today, sir.
Well, I'm glad you could make it. I do want to say this to the viewers. If this is your first time or you've been coming around but you haven't made the leap, today is the day to subscribe to Thinking Critical YouTube. We have all the best comic book and pop culture content that you could ever want. Don't forget to hit the bell for notifications. Give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed this content. Give us a thumbs down if you don't. We know people are going to talk about they're not going to enjoy your take on Ten of Swords, but we're going to get there, Doc. If you want to hear what Doc has to say about Ten of Swords, you have to wait to the end of the video. We're going to start out with Juggernaut #1. Fabian Nicieza comes back to Dawn of X, so I think it's his first time at Dawn of X, but returns to X-Men. Obviously, he has a storied history with the franchise. Just one of the more underrated creators, probably in comic book history. Ron Garney, absolutely one of the most underrated, underappreciated artists in comic book history, is on Juggernaut as the artist. This is a mini-series. Juggernaut has a new look. I'm going to say this flat out. The art in this thing is dope.
It really is. I really enjoyed the art on this. Ron Garney's kind of he is an unheralded artist. Not a lot of people, everyone's seen his stuff, but they don't realize that they've seen his stuff. He's not the most flashy guy, but he's an excellent storyteller.
Absolutely. What do you think about this new look for Juggernaut? Obviously, we learned during the comic book that essentially he lost his powers and he had to drag his old armor to this tree to kind of get his powers back. Do you like the new look? It's certainly a different take.
I do, and the primary reason why is because obviously he's working for Damage Control. And the new look is a hint at, I think, where this whole miniseries is going and where the future of Juggernaut's going. They talk about how Damage Control is they're monitoring the Sidorak energies, or how did they describe it? I don't remember.
Yeah.
But they're monitoring
traces of energy from the 9 realms. I believe it was Sidorak.
Yeah, and they're monitoring it because they're obviously using some sort of technology in the suit in order to bring the power of Sidorak into Cain Marko to make him the Juggernaut without actually having the gem in him. And it shows that this is not your normal Juggernaut. This is a Juggernaut that's kind of living under the thumb of Damage Control. And I think we're going to see him pushing back on that soon enough.
What's interesting in this, obviously we know just from the cover and the very last shot of this, he's going to be fighting Hulk next. They certainly had their duels in the past. They're always fun, exciting. I can't wait for this. But this is much more almost like, is this a slice of life Juggernaut comic? Obviously, we get introduced to D-Cell here. He's going through, he's destroying some buildings for Damage Control. It turns out he thinks they have a mutant. She says she's not a mutant, that she was changed through some type of event where she's got these powers where she's got anti-kinesis. Like if you're moving, she can make you stop.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I actually like D-Cell.
Yeah,
she's an interesting,
cool. Just a dumb name.
Yeah, and they're even owning the fact that it's a dumb name in the comic where she's Juggernaut's making fun of her. I don't think that this is a slice of life comic, and I don't think it's going to be. I think this is going to be Juggernaut's kind of quest to once again become the Juggernaut.
So you don't think he's looking for personal redemption? You think he's on a quest for regain his power?
I think once he realizes that he can regain his power, I think he's looking for a little bit of both. I think he's looking to be a more productive Juggernaut. I guess if you could describe anything that he does as productive. But I think he's also looking for a way to get his power back without relying on whatever technology damage control gave him.
So I do want to say, I do like D-Cell, other than the name being stupid, but they do admit that, like you said in the comic. Interesting character. Obviously, it is a Gen Z character, but not pretentious. A little bit of a smartass, but not pretentious. This is the way you write characters. Young characters.
Yeah, I like it. It was, she's interesting. And I like
cool. She's an action. It's important.
Yeah, and first of all, she's not a mutant. That was a thing that they made a big deal about. She's not a mutant. She's another science freak. And she has a cool power. I mean, it's a dumb name, but it oddly enough makes sense because she slows things down. And that's the thing that you can't stop the Juggernaut. Yeah, you can't stop the Juggernaut, but can you decelerate him? I don't know. Apparently so.
Yeah, well, she did. He ends up going through a wall. Like, it falls on her. She ends up in the hospital, and he basically takes her there. And that's kind of where we left the story. Although we were getting kind of filled in on what happened to him and how he ended up in this new suit and under the control or under the thumb of damage control. I think it's pretty cool. It's not my favorite Dawn of X title. This is a good comic book. I will definitely see it till the end. Two creators that I definitely respect. I love Ron Garney's art. For me, this is like a 3.5 star recommend comic book. It's right on the precipice of a highly recommend.
Yeah, I would have to agree. Yeah, sounds about right.
Very solid beginning. Good introduction to the character. Now let's see what they do with it.
Yes.
All right, now let's move into something a little bit more controversial. Obviously, Rob Liefeld, controversy is kind of part of his brain. It has been since essentially from day one back in the 90s when he made his name in the comic book industry. He's got his new podcast now, and he's really kind of opening the curtain with all the stuff that was happening behind the scenes, which I think is a really cool thing. And we talked about it when he started his Robservations. But there was this weird thing when they announced that Vita Ayala was going to be writing New Mutants, and he made a joke, and he said, "I ain't coming back to save the title a third time," or something like this. And everyone's like, "How dare you?
Yeah.
Besmirch the name of Vita Ayala. She will write circles around you." Of course, Vita Ayala's never had a successful comic book in her life.
No, and
she's written one story that I thought was good, well, really good. She's written a bunch of average stuff, and one really good story that was a 10-pager in Wonder Woman 750.
I'll take your word for that because I've read a handful of things that she's written, and none of them are even, in my opinion, passable. They're pretty.
Wonder Woman 750 is absolutely excellent. So it was really stupid. The outcry was embarrassing.
Yeah,
I feel bad for the people saying it. You're just saying it because you feel like you have to say it. You don't believe it. Rob Liefeld.
Yeah, if you're going to be a mark for somebody,
can sell a comic on name alone. Rob Liefeld will still do that. Now, can he still sell as many as he did when he was launching cable and stuff like that? Well, probably not. It's not in his heyday, but the man can still sell comics. I guarantee you, Vita Ayala's never sold a comic book as high as his Major X #1.
Well, I can guarantee that you probably have about a dozen people on the planet that have ever bought a comic book because Vita Ayala's name's on it, and you have
Vita Ayala and her mom, or two of them.
Yeah. And you have at least, say, roughly 500,000 that have bought a comic book just because Rob Liefeld's name's on the cover. So, okay. I mean,
it's embarrassing. I felt embarrassed. You're just saying, you don't mean it. Whatever. Yeah. But Rob is, he's been pretty outspoken. He's using the Twitter sphere to his advantage, get a little bit of controversy going, draw some views over there to Observations, where he has some really interesting stories, interesting thing to say. But he has been slamming, and didn't just start this week. He has been slamming the X-Men team. He has taken a verbal 2x4 up to Jordan White said a couple times. One of the key members of the Legion of Doofuses in my mind. Yeah. But this is what he has to say about what's going on with the current X-Men series. Obviously, we're going into Ten of Swords, which we're going to talk about here in a second. This is what Rob says on Twitter. I don't want Egyptian shit and tarot cards. I want mutants who protect those who hate and loathe them. The way Stan and Jack and Chris intended, it's right there in the header. Get off my lawn.
He's not a Texan, dude. He's Californian. Come on.
Well, he's whatever.
I get you though.
Gran Torino was in California.
He does come across a little bit as a bit of a curmudgeon there, but you know what? He's absolutely right.
If he doesn't want Egyptian shit, what is Absamanur? What is Apocalypse? There's been Egyptian shit in since he arrived.
Although in fairness, Rob almost never touched the Egyptian shit with his Apocalypse when he was dealing with Cable versus Apocalypse stuff. He almost never touched the Egyptian stuff.
It's implied, Doc. It's implied.
I understand, but I'll disagree with him on the Egyptian stuff because that could be somewhat interesting. The tarot cards are stupid. They've been stupid since day one, and they're still stupid now. And
they were stupid in House of X #1.
Yeah.
They're stupid in Ten of Swords #1 creation.
Yeah. And they'll be stupid.
I don't know why they're there. Is it just to bring in? I don't even want to. I don't want to insult anybody.
I'm going to avoid insulting anyone with that. It's a pointless plot device, and it's really obnoxious, to be perfectly honest. That's not really what the X-Men are.
No one's denying that. Rob makes
the
tarot cards are not what the story is. It's a narrative device to introduce ideas that are going to play out in the story.
Yes, but unless you're a middle-class white chick from like Williamsburg that is into her chakras and healing gems and essential oils, nobody cares about tarot.
Or your Chase.
Okay, fine, Chase too.
My whole point is Rob had his time on X-Men.
Yes.
Very successful, exceptionally lucrative. So successful and lucrative. He got a Calvin Klein ad for it. He was in his undies. He was in his tidy whities showing all of America. He was able to take that, go over and create his own company and create a bunch of, create your own stuff. And I think, he owes a lot to X-Men, to his personal success. And X-Men owe a lot to him as far as the success of some of the newer characters and ideas that they've done. But it's no longer his time on X-Men. You don't have to go out there and trash the new guys left and right.
Yeah, except for Rob's worst issue sales-wise on X-Men is multitudes better than the best issue sales-wise of modern X-Men. So he's got every room.
Well, he wrote Major X, and I guarantee that sales for Major X are lower than House of X Powers and 10 every single issue.
Except for maybe issue 1.
Of what?
Major X.
Well, maybe that was like 120 or something, but House of X Powers and 10 was like, well, maybe they were the same. But generally speaking, House of X Powers and 10, the sales were much better than Major X.
Yeah, I understand that, but
it's also a different time in the industry.
It is. Yeah, but my point is that Rob has his opinion on what X-Men should be, and Rob's opinion is make X-Men that feels like when it sold very well, and it will start selling very well again. This plant supremacist tarot magic nonsense is pointless. It's not what draws people to X-Men.
Although I don't know that he probably would have made this tweet if all the idiots in the comic book industry didn't go, "How dare you, Rob, besmirch Vita Ayala? She is a talentless writer." But that's enough on Liefeld. We do need to get into Ten of Swords. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time on this. Obviously, I did my review, and I said the first half, this crap right here, was boring. It was a regurgitation of the free comic book day issue with a couple extra words on it. There wasn't a whole lot going on here. There's one cool thing when the summoner comes back with Banshee, leading into the turn that we knew that was going to happen. And I thought it was boring, mundane. There's a lot of ways to describe it. None of it being good. The art was fine, I guess. It really picks up in the second half. But I do think once this crap is out of the way, it picked up and it actually became a good comic that was a highly recommend because I enjoyed the second half.
You know what? I liked it for the most part. I don't understand why, if Saturnine is so, powerful, why she doesn't do anything. She's a bit OP in here when she snaps her finger and the entire world freezes. Yeah. Now the first half of this comic absolutely was terrible. It was boring. It was work. I'm like, oh God, this is so bad. This is a slog to get through. And I hated every part of it.
I like this part right here. That was it.
Yeah, the giant, Cthulhu monster thing, and then Krakoa basically bitch slapping down the entire Quiet Council was a little interesting. But honestly, even the second part, there were interesting parts of it. But the premise that it set up, explaining finally why we somehow need a bunch of swords, because they haven't bothered to sell us on that part of it up until now.
You don't like a Secret Wars contest of champions with X-Men?
That's all it is. It's contest of champions with X-Men. You don't need 21 more chapters for that.
I'm with you with that one, Doc. I do not, for the life of me, get it. Like, how are you, even if you introduce a new blade, you've already introduced one blade with Kid Cable. I think the Muramasa blade's already been found. 8 issues on finding swords?
Yeah,
it'll be a bit boring.
Yeah, and then another dozen issues. This is Marvel.
This is the Legion of Doofuses.
They're testing a new event model here. And where, you had Absolute Carnage, where there was kind of 6 major parts plus the major tie-ins in Venom and Amazing Spider-Man. But then you had all those one-shots. So now you have the 6 major issues that people buy, and then the second tier levels where there was another 4 or 6 issues that most people bought. But then you had all the one-shots that were pointless, that were just there for sales gimmick, that most people didn't buy. This is their way of now forcing you to buy those by making them individual chapters inside of a big thing, so you don't know which ones don't actually effing matter. So you can
I think it'd be interesting if this will just turn people away.
I hope to God it does. I hope that I'll be straight with you from a purely reader perspective. I hope that the sales on this event are absolutely abysmal. And because I do not want them to use this as the new model for how they do events.
I'm with you there. Also, I will say this. My biggest complaint about this comic book right here is all the new characters that they introduced in X-Men number 12 and then they started playing out here. You met the Summoner, and I believe it was X-Men number 2. Why haven't we had conversations between Apocalypse and the Summoner giving backstory in each issue? Filling us in on these characters when they finally came together, they started doing stuff and interacting when he's telling the backstory, that you kind of start recognize them and know who they are. I don't know who any of the characters are, except for 2.
Yeah, I don't either. They should have been doing this the whole way around, except for this event was Tinny Howard's event that they made Hickman involved in because somebody had to sell it. because she definitely wasn't going to, because he didn't care about this event. This isn't his thing. And so all the individual issues of X-Men up until now, where you should have been like seeding the ground up until this event, he wasn't doing that because he didn't give a shit about this event. This wasn't his thing. This is him getting forced into it.
Yeah. You know what's interesting, Doc? Next week, the only chapter of Ten of Swords, and the only X-Men comic is X Factor.
Yeah, and that doesn't make... And then you get like 4 chapters the following week.
Yeah, 3 the next week. So I'm actually going to read X Factor for the channel, and I'll share a screenshot or two if we need to talk about it. But otherwise, will we even have an This Week in X-Men next week? Because it feels like nothing's happened.
I don't know. I don't unless there's other news. I don't see
it might be roasting X Factor. We didn't roast the first issue. Maybe we'll be roasting X Factor next week.
Yeah, I'd be down with a roast Leah Williams X Factor. Yeah, I'd be down with that.
So we shall see. Obviously, you thought the comic was better than I anticipated. You hated the beginning as well as I did. I liked the second half. Saturnine feels too OP. Juggernaut, perfectly good comic. Got a lot of promise. We'll see what they do with the character on I believe it's a 6-part miniseries. Rob Liefeld is being Rob Liefeld, getting a little self-promotion out there. Anybody out there who claimed that, how dare he? Vidal is a great writer. Get out of here with that shit.
Yeah.
You're just making yourself look stupid.
Yeah, not even the Vita thing. Screw that. Just the whole, modern X-Men. I'm sorry, modern X-Men has a very niche appeal, and it is not the mass appeal franchise right now in its current form. That you need to in order to make it successful. This is so wildly impenetrable and off model for who the X-Men are. It's not going to draw in new readers.